Okay, so welcome to my thoughts on Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I decided to do this a little bit differently to usual. I'm going to actually be giving my thoughts while I do some Champion Cup rematches because I really want a Flame Orb or Toxic Orb. I have two Guts Pokemon and I need a Flame Orb, and it's only available as a random reward from this. And they're some of the few competitive items that are not available at all via BP, so that's extremely annoying. But anyway, from this we'll get to see a bit of a good look at my in-game team. So, let's go. Also, we're going to get amazing music for this. So, normally, for this one, I was planning on starting with the positive because, obviously, there's been a lot of negativity about this game as it is, but there is something that I have to address first off. This music's amazing. Actually, no, that was not the thing that I wanted to address. So, the Dex cut, because that's the thing that everyone is talking about, and I obviously have to give my thoughts on it immediately, because that's the thing that everyone will ask me about. See, here's the thing. People play Pokemon games for different reasons. There's a huge number of, different play styles. Pokemon appeals to so many different kinds of people. I know people who only play to collect cute shinies and don't really care about battling. I know people who only care about competitive battling and who don't care at all about completing the Pokedex. And then there's people who want to, gotta catch 'em all and that kind of thing. Which was never actually the franchise's tagline in Japan, by the way. So here's the thing. The Dex cut does not affect me in any way, shape, or form. It has absolutely zero impact on how enjoyable I find this game. Oh, I guess I should have been using Max Flutterby. Because if you've seen any of my other Pokemon series, you'll know this, I have never cared about Dex completion. Never cared about it. Never have and likely never will. It just doesn't personally appeal to me. I don't want to just collect Pokemon, I want to train them. And it just feels, I don't know, hollow to me to just evolve something up just for the purposes of getting a number registered in your Dex. The other thing about me is that despite the fact that I have grown up with Pokemon since Gen 1, I much prefer seeing new Pokemon over old ones. So, yeah, when I saw that Force Pidgey encounter in Pokemon X and Y, I wasn't like, yay, my old favorite. I was like, oh, come on. As if I haven't seen enough Pidgeys in my day. Give me something new. And because of that, I like games that focus on new Pokemon over old ones, particularly Black and White. Black and White 1 is my favorite game in the series, and that really tells you something about the kind of Pokemon fan that I am. So because of that, losing Pokemon out of the Dex really doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I'm actually kind of overjoyed when I see old Pokemon gone. But I do know that that is an issue for other people. See, another thing is that I never transfer Pokemon forward. Because usually the transfer is one way, and to me it just feels wrong to separate Pokemon from their original... I was wondering if he was getting to his Dynomax already, and then I realized, oh wait, he changes his signature Pokemon for the rematch. But yeah, usually transfer is one way, so most of the time I just never transfer forward because it's separating my Pokemon from their original homes forever. I did that a bit from Gen 3 to Gen 4, and I didn't really like it that much, and I've never really transferred since. So, and I don't even intend on getting Pokemon home. I'm perfectly content just using whatever's available in the game that I'm playing. And that's what I like about playing a new Pokemon game. I like seeing what's available and working with what you're given. So, again, the Dex cut doesn't affect me, but I know that it affects a lot of other people, so it's hard for me to judge it because, again, it's something that I'm personally, ambivalent towards, but I know that a lot of people might really hate, so I really don't know. They are adding back some new Pokemon via the DLC, and I actually like how they're handling the DLC Pokemon, in that they're actually available to everyone, regardless of if you buy the DLC or not. If you trade with someone who does, you can still get those Pokemon in the game, even the completely new ones. It's not like, say, Fire Emblem Fates, where the Witch and Ballistician classes were in the game's coding, and you could fight against them in other people's castles, but you couldn't use them if you didn't have the DLC. Yeah, that always annoyed me a bit. So, that's pretty much all my thoughts on that. So, let's go into, other things. So, due to all of the negative publicity surrounding this game, I went into this game with very low expectations, and I decided after watching a little bit of footage of it on YouTube that, you know what, maybe I should try this out. And I tried it, and I ended up surprisingly liking it more than I expected to. It's just, I don't know, there was just something about this game. When I started playing from the first route and catching the Pokemon on that route, I was just like, huh, I'm actually having fun with this. I didn't expect to, but I am. There are a lot of things in this game that I didn't entirely expect to like that ended up growing on me, is the thing. One of them is the graphics, weirdly enough. The graphics really grew on me. I actually don't dislike the graphics anymore. It's kind of weird. I feel similarly towards Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like, I've never been a big graphics guy, but, like, I actually think the human character models look pretty decent in this game. And I'm kind of fond of how the Pokemon look in this game, too. There's one complaint that I'll get to in a moment, but, like, it really says something when I've gone back to watch footage of the 3DS Pokemon games, and, like, I'm instinctively thinking, wow, this actually looks really bad. Because I'm so used to this. It's just kind of weird. But the thing that I don't like about, okay, I'm probably going to Dynomax here just to get rid of this weather. The thing that I don't like about the graphics, though, is that there are some Pokemon where their mouths and eyes are very obviously flat textures and not, like, just put onto a rounded model and not, like, actually modeled on. Like, for example, you can see that Inteleon's eyelids are actually in 3D and are actually modeled on, but, there are a lot of Pokemon. I think it's most noticeable with Woobat and Sudowoodo. If you look at Woobat and Sudowoodo, look at their eyes and mouths. They're very clearly just flat textures, and that looks a little bit awkward to me, given that they could easily have modeled those on. That's the only real complaint I have about that and the trees in the wild area, but yeah. So there's that. I love the music in these games. I really love the Gym Leader battle theme, the Champion Cup battle theme. You have hydration, don't you? And you're probably not going to go down to one ice move. And also, another thing that grew on me in this game that I didn't expect to like as much, Hop's theme. Hop's first battle theme in particular. I actually like his first battle theme better than his second. I don't really like Hop 2, but Hop 1, I ended up really liking Hop 1 a lot more than I thought I would. So yeah, generally pretty great music. And I also actually ended up liking the Galar region. I do admit Galar is actually very short, and there's not a lot in Galar, but at the same time, I also find there aren't as many areas that I never feel the need to go back to. So it's small, it's linear, but every place does serve a purpose. Unlike some Pokemon regions, I think in particular, Sinnoh, I often didn't like Sinnoh because it had a lot of very redundant towns, and a lot of places that there was really no reason to go back to after you'd already been through them once. This game has a few routes like that, but there are a lot of places that have unique Pokemon to them to find, places to EV train, even though you can just use vitamins for that, and, like, items to get. I'm okay with you doing that. I'll talk more about my thoughts on the wild area a little later. But one of the things that I like the most about this game is the way they handled the encounter system. I was really hoping they carried over Let's Go's encounter system to the main series because random encounters are outdated. Like, RPGs do not need random encounters anymore. Oh, that's Turtonator, isn't it? RPGs really do not need random encounters. And I'm so glad that random encounters are mostly gone. There is the occasional instance of a wild Pokemon spawning on top of you, or you're running through grass and a shaking patch appears right where you're moving, but it's generally pretty rare. Usually in this game, you don't encounter a Pokemon unless you specifically want to, and that's a good thing, at least to me. The only thing that I don't like about the encounter system is there are some Pokemon that are exclusive to the random grass encounters and never appear on the fields. That I do find a bit annoying, especially since some of them have very low encounter rates. So that can be a problem sometimes, but most things that are like that, you can generally find them in the wild area anyway. Oh look, it's Shell Trap, the move that I don't think I've ever seen actually work. I think it has to be triggered by a physical contact move, but it's just... I've never actually seen Turtonator get that off successfully. Also, okay, now that he's sending out Duraludon, I can also mention something. So, one other thing that I really like about this, the new Pokemon. I actually really love the Galar Pokemon and the new Galar forms. Again, I have a couple of ones that I don't like. In particular, Pincurchin. I don't really see why Pincurchin exists. It just feels kind of pointless. But other than that, most of the Pokemon, like, seem at least somewhat decent. They all have something. Also, I'm, yeah, stopping because this music is cool. They all have at least something going for them. Most of them aren't, like, ridiculously hidden, except, I guess, maybe Stoja and Penguin Ice Cube. And they do make decent use of the Gigantamax forms to give gym leaders kind of cool signature Pokemon for boss fights. This actually might be my favorite set of new Pokemon since Gen 4. And that's pretty high praise, considering that Gen 4's new Pokemon were my favorite batch of new Pokemon of any generation until now. I had a feeling that would happen sooner or later. Yeah, this is... I've always found Raihan... I call him Raihan. I don't know if that's actually how it's meant to be pronounced, but Duraludon's I found one of the tougher boss Dynomax Pokemon to me, as far as the gym leaders go. I'll talk about my thoughts on them a little bit later. I guess Rapidash? Yeah, I had to use Galarian Rapidash. So yeah, apart from, like, Pincurchin... Oh, I totally forgot about Steel. Yeah, it can quickly snowball these buffs. I don't often see it use its actual signature move. Just mostly likes to spam Steel Spike and Max Knuckle. I should probably have this thing down pretty soon, though. So anyway, like, in terms of the Galarian forms, the one Galarian form that I don't particularly like is, Galarian Meowth. I like Berserker, but why do they feel the need to give Meowth a regional variant in 2 consecutive generations? It just feels a bit, I don't know, weird to me that they're like, oh hey, we gave Meowth a new form in the last gen, let's give it a new form again. But that being said, though, Berserker is legitimately pretty cool. It also means the Minnesota Vikings joke from the Pokemon First movie has... I never noticed that before. His Rotom phone has a sad face when you beat him. Something else that I'll talk about later. I think the gym leaders in this game have a lot of personality. I like that they've incorporated new evolutions of old Pokemon, but again, because I love that back in Gen 4, it gave a new lease of life to a lot of old Pokemon that had just really bad stats and just generally weren't very good. But I do find it kind of weird that they restricted it to the new forms, because I do feel like it really does show some of that nostalgia pandering that's been kind of endemic of Game Freak since Gen 6. It's just like I love the new evolutions in Gen 4. I thought that was a really, really great idea. And yet, apparently, a lot of people really hated them for perverting old favorites. And so, in this generation, when they did give old Pokemon new evolutions, they felt the need to give them to new forms, so their old evolutions were still in the game. And wouldn't be quote-unquote tainted. Again, as someone who prefers new overall, that just kind of gets to me, but... Anyway, a lot of the new evolutions are kind of cool. Some of them are a bit weird, like Rune Regus is literally just Koffagrigus with a new type and its attack and special attack swapped. But some of them, like Berserker, are really interesting. So anyway, those are pretty cool, and looks like we're getting rain in the forecast soon. Okay, one more thing that I can talk about, I guess, since this relates mostly to gameplay, is the experience share being always on. It can be a little awkward. I originally thought it wasn't as bad of a thing because early on in the game, as long as you didn't go out of your way to grind in the wild area, which is a thing, like, there are a lot of people who, like, spent tons of time in the wild area during the main story. I specifically avoided that because I was worried about getting overleveled. It's just something that gets me when I play RPGs. I don't like being overleveled. I like having a decent challenge, and being overleveled is one of the fastest ways to make boss fights way easier than they're supposed to be. So I just really hate... You picked the wrong time to roost, buddy! Because this is going to be super effective now, isn't it? Sorry that I'm interrupting myself, but... Yep! Nice one. So, originally, I didn't go out of my way to grind, and I felt that I was actually getting it around the right level for most of the battles. But around the later part of the game, specifically the 6th gym and onward, I did start finding that I was going a bit ahead of the curve. I was overleveled for Piers, which really frustrated me because I love the concept of that fight. And I was overleveled for Raihan, and thus I entered the league at about the same level you're supposed to be for the finals of the Champion Cup, which was also a little annoying as it meant that a lot of the early league fights were just, you know, kind of overly easy for me. So in a sense, I do kind of wish you could turn it off, but the experience scaling does make it a little bit better. And there are some people who hate the experience scaling because it makes it harder to grind to level 100. Well, now you have candies, so grinding to level 100 in the post-game is incredibly easy. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, because it does take away a lot of that, to me at least, satisfying feeling of hard work of training a Pokemon. A lot of people don't like that and would prefer to just have their Pokemon immediately via hacking, so... And these people can get quite... There's a lot of hatred towards people who just enjoy EV training and enjoy breeding. Like, I get so many weird looks in real life from people who play Pokemon when I say I like breeding. Like, I genuinely enjoy breeding. But anyway, that's going a bit off topic. Overall, I do think that the, like, difficulty balancing in the main story is pretty decent. And all of the gym leaders are actually pretty, like, solid. I like their teams. They use 4 Pokemon now, much earlier than they did in other generations. And Dynomax adds kind of a cool boss battle feel to it, especially if you're going for minimal casualties, no Dynamaxing. If you don't care about casualties, though, I will say Dynomax is very easy to stall out during the main story just by sacrificing 3 Pokemon to it. And I guess now I can segue into talking about Dynomax in general. So, yeah, a lot of people like to bash it because Smogon banned it within, like, just a few weeks of the game coming out. Here's the thing, though. Game Freak has never balanced Pokemon around single battles since VGC became relatively popular. Like, they added things like safety goggles and nerfing Dark Void. It was all to nerf things that were good in doubles. And a lot of people have argued that Dynomax is actually reasonably balanced for double battles, at least more than it is for singles. So, yeah, I don't really mind it that much. I do kind of feel like maybe it should have been restricted to the main story as, like, just as a purely boss battle kind of thing, but yeah, the fact that it could be used freely in competitive singles meant that that was probably a bit too much. It's just a lot of people forget that Smogon does use a very different rule set to a lot of official ones, in that, like, they emphasize single battles over doubles and they do 6v6 battles, which even most officially endorsed single battle formats are not 6v6. There are definitely some things I think could have been done better with Dynamaxing. Now's the moment of truth. Let's see if I actually get a good item out of the ball guy. Like, it is a bit weird that every status move turns into max guard, so it's heavily focused on offensive build rather than defensive. There's no, like, max sleep or max paralyze. Oh, right, the first one you do per day is always a wishing piece, which makes it even harder to get the items that you want. You know what? Let's invite... Can I invite Marnie? Huh, I guess I don't have her rare lead... No, I'm pretty sure I do have her rare lead card. I guess I can invite Piers and see if he has his special battle theme here. But I mean, I'm not exactly, you know, the one to fully go on about Dynomaxing, since while I do a bit of competitive battling, I'm not, like, extremely into it, and I don't really know, like, most of the ins and outs of the whole system, so yeah. I can't really say a lot about whether I think Dynomaxing is balanced or not, but I do like how it can give some Pokemon a dual purpose. Like, you'll see that with my Corviknight in the Wi-Fi battles. When I Dynamax, I can go for attack buffs with Max Knuckle, which basically turns my, my Body Press into a useful utility move in addition to an attacking move. Oh, I forgot you learned that. Sigilyph learns a lot of weird moves. Learns a lot of very weird moves. My other issue with Dynomax is, and this is something that a lot of people take issue with, is that Gigantamax is a bit weird. It only gives you access to one exclusive move, and generally speaking, there are a lot of Gigantamax moves that are flat out worse than their basic Dynamax versions, like Charizard's for one. It's kind of funny, Gigantamax Charizard's pretty bad because Charizard really needed the Mega Evolution boost to be good, and with just the stats of normal Charizard and a fire move that doesn't set up Sunny Day, it's generally pretty bad. And then there's also Dreadnought, which we fought just then. It sacrifices Rain setup, and it has Swift Swim for making Stealth Rock with its water move, which is not really all that useful. Like, you'd rather just use Stealth Rock. So, yeah, the Gigantamax forms are weird. There are some that are generally pretty good, like Hatterene I've heard good things about, because it can use a Fairy Max move without overriding Psychic Terrain. But it's a bit of a weird thing, and the fact that you can't breed it down, although I think they will be adding something in the DLC that lets you give any Pokemon you want the Gigantamax factor. So, with all that out of the way, I want to segue into talking about this game's main storyline, because I like a lot about the main storyline, and I also dislike a lot about the main storyline. It's kind of like a half and half thing. So, what I like about it, like I said, the gym leaders have a lot of personality. They're some of my favourite and most memorable gym leaders since Black and White. And I like that they actually decided to make the gym challenge the story this time. I'm really surprised they never went that route before. I mean, you can kind of argue that that was the case in Gen 1, but no. In my book, Gen 1 did not have a story at all, so it doesn't count. Like, with the gym challenge being such a big part of the series, again, it's really weird that not until now do they actually think, oh hey, let's actually make the gym challenge the story. And it works. It's basically treated like a sports story. You're a group of contenders going through a challenge, you get to see everyone grow and develop on the journey, and Leon, it's kind of interesting, like, I kind of describe Leon as, like, love to hate to me without the hate. I know a lot of people do hate Leon for how often the game shills him as the unbeatable champion, and for also the whole Charizard nostalgia. Bear in mind, Charizard is my favorite Pokemon, so, and I'm just as embarrassed about the Charizard nostalgia as everyone else is, so, yeah. But Leon, to me, he is just too much of a lovable goofball to really hate. I see Leon as, if Ash actually grew up, I imagine he'd probably be something like Leon. But you do feel really pumped to take him down, in kind of a the student has surpassed the master way. And when you finally do battle him, it's a really great fight. So, I love the build up to that moment. You have an obstacle to defeat, established right from the very beginning. And the whole game is kind of building up to that showdown. Or at least it would be if they didn't decide to shoehorn in a second plot line. And this is what really bugs me about this game's main story. If they had just kept it as a story about the League Challenge and made it like a sports story, it would have been really great. But they had to shoehorn in a big villain and a saving the world plot at the last minute. At almost literally the last minute. It felt like they had two stories and they tried to combine them both when they really should have just focused on one, because Team Galactic and Cyrus used to be my least favorite villains in Pokemon. They've been overtaken now. Chairman Rose is hands down my least favorite villain in the series. Spoilers, by the way, but yeah. And in fact, when I was doing that survey that Nintendo gave people about Pokemon Sword and Shield, when it said, is there anything you don't like about Pokemon Sword and Shield? I actually put in Chairman Rose being a villain. That was the main thing that I could put for that, because it's just, him being a villain really adds nothing to the story, except adding 2 additional battles to the final boss gauntlet. That's really all it does. I mean, I guess it's vaguely foreshadowed, but it's just his motivations kind of come out of nowhere. It's just like, oh, out of nowhere, oh hey, I'm gonna start a apocalypse to solve the energy crisis. And it's just, his battle's also really easy too, because his team has a ton of common weaknesses. By the way, I should mention that I kind of picture Alistair sounding exactly like Feros from Persona 3. Although, I guess more British. But back to what I was saying, so, yeah. There's not really much else I can say apart from the fact that they really... Not all stories need a villain, is the thing. This story would have worked perfectly fine without a villain, and Chairman Rose as a villain just feels really shoehorned in and doesn't really add a lot. Except for the amazing Storming Rose Tower theme, which unfortunately you can't use for Wi-Fi battles. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But apart from Chairman Rose, I do think the characters are pretty decent. I already said I think the gym leaders have a lot of personality, and I kind of like how you get to collect their trading cards that tell you their backstories. But in terms of the rivals, I think Hop is really good. I think Hop is one of the best rivals in the series to me. And a lot of people have come around to liking him. They just sort of felt like they didn't expect to like Hop, but he ended up having a pretty decent arc. I like his, as Marilam would describe, in his playthrough, mid-trainer crisis. I thought it was kind of interesting to see him, and I thought it was a pretty decent take on self-esteem issues, honestly. And that sort of feeling of inadequacy. Now, the thing is, my original, idea for the story is I wanted Leon to be the big bad, and I wanted Hop to have to deal with the fact that his brother was either a fraud or flat-out evil. But, that didn't end up happening, and maybe it's for the best. But like I said, I like Hop's battle theme. I kind of like how they gave him N's theme of switching up his team. I do think, the main criticism I have of Hop is that I think you fight him a bit too often. In particular, you fight him both immediately before and immediately after the 6th gym. And I know that the fight after is, you know, a significant point in his character development, but it's still a little bit excessive, and I feel like the fact that you fight Hop so much actually means that some of the other rivals don't get the development they deserve, and that leads me straight into Marnie. Now, this is why I wanted to invite her to this tournament, is because, I really wish that I liked Marnie more than I do. I think Marnie's a really good idea, I think she's a good character overall, but she just doesn't do very much, which is weird given how prominent Team Yell is to the story. You only fight her twice before the league, and that just feels really like, I have nothing that can hurt you now, I just realized. This is also one of the tougher battles featuring the main story, because this Gengar ended up spamming Max Ooze and being faster than most of my team and kind of one-shotting most of my party. So that's a bit of a problem. If I do this, do I get out of Disable? I think I do, because it let me choose the move. But anyway, when I first heard Marnie's League battle theme, I thought it was an amazing idea, because it's just you hear the crowd cheering the sort of more epic version of her theme. It really gives you a feeling of look how far she's come, but you haven't really seen much of her journey. You only battle her twice. So I kind of wish either some of Hop's battles were removed and replaced with Marnie battles, or they gave some of the focus that Bede gets to Marnie. So let's go into Bede for a second. Bede is a character who, again, I wish I liked him more, but I think he's a decent character, and the arc that he gets in the first half of the game is solid. And that's the problem, the first half of the game. Bede pretty much drops off the face of the planet after the Fairy Gym. He just loses pretty much all of his relevance. And it's just kind of weird. Like, I know that he's connected to Chairman Rose, but then again, Chairman Rose is pretty much completely irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, so it's not like that's saying much. So, yeah. I love Bede's battle theme. I like the concept of him as this sort of tsundere jerk guy who actually... One thing that I think is really great about him that I find hilarious is he just puts on the sort of smug jerk act, and yet once he does become fairy-type gym leader, also spoilers, he... Yes, they do give him his battle theme, that's great. He really gets really into the fabulosity that comes with being a fairy-type gym leader, which I find just really funny. But anyway, it's just like, I feel like, why, like, I think that, like, him being pivotal to Hop's development is good, but apart from that, he doesn't really serve much of a purpose in the grand scheme of things, other than to, like, add another fight to the Pokemon League. Just distracted by Pierce's battle theme for a second. I don't know if you can really get what I'm saying about this, but part of me feels like Bede was added to the story as a last-minute addition to pander to the fans who wanted jerk rivals, which I never understood that. Like, I never understood what this hate for friendly rivals was. Like, I don't hate Callum and Serena for being friendly. I hate them because I just find them really bad and bland characters. And I don't like Silver for being a jerk. I like Silver because he actually had a character arc. And Cheren, I like Cheren for having a character arc. And hey, Gladion is a jerk rival, and I like his character arc too, but I do not get this idolization with Blue that has been a thing in the fandom lately. Like, to me, Blue was never a good character. He was just a flat, one-dimensional jerk. He only became something remotely resembling a character who developed in Gold and Silver, and even then you saw a bit more of that side in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It's just like, I just feel it's another aspect of the rampant Kanto nostalgia that a lot of people have. I never liked Blue, slash Gary, slash Green, slash whatever you wanted to call him. I really didn't. Like, a lot of people thought that, like, oh, he's always one... yeah. I had to rant about this at some point. This is a bit off topic, but I had to get this all off my chest, so I'll continue. People acted like he was, like, really competent, and that his smugness was justified because he was the guy who was always one step ahead, and he was always beating those gyms before you. To me, I always found the gyms easy as a kid, so it was no surprise to me that Blue was winning. And also, I never really thought he was competent. Because he always loses to you if you're playing well, to me, I always saw Blue as... I basically saw Blue as just kind of a deluded jerk who thought he was way better than he actually was, and just kind of acted all tough, but really was actually not that good of a trainer. And yeah, sure, his final team has, like, decent types and things like that, but I never had trouble with Blue as a final boss, so... Yeah, again, like, he never came across as competent to me. He came across as a cocky guy who was overcompensating and only acted competence. And to me, that doesn't really make for a particularly good rival. I thought he was sitting at Obstagoon in there, so this is probably not a good matchup, but oh well. I should have used Double Edge, that was dumb. Because I actually have Reckless on this Obstagoon, so... yeah, Double Edge would have been powered up. Anyway, like... and I do think as far as jerk rivals go, Bede is a good jerk rival, but he loses so much relevance after the Fairy Gym that I feel like maybe if it was just Hop and Marnie, maybe Marnie could have developed more, because I love how her brother is a gym leader. And I love the whole, like, I think Piers is a really great character. He has a lot of personality. I completely forgot you had that. He has a lot of personality for only being met and battled once, and for being, like, technically an evil team leader without really being evil. I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. But here's something else that I'll get into. The plot definitely feels a little bit rushed towards the later half. Like, you get into Piers' gym, and the Team Yell grunt just suddenly starts saying, oh, by the way, Team Yell were actually Piers' gym trainers. They just tell you that. They don't really... Like, it was obvious just from the way they dressed and the whole way that his gym challenge was going. So, yeah, it just feels like a weird case of tell, don't show. Come on, Flame Orb or Toxic Orb. And also, and this is, I think, another symptom of the plot being, like, them trying to shoehorn in the saving the world plot. One part that really bugs a lot of people about this story, they knew that you'd be waiting to see what you would get. Of course, it's netballs. Apparently, the Flame Orb and Toxic Orb are rare rewards as well. It's just, yeah, let's invite Hop this time. So that part of... Oh, I was actually going to invite Bede as well, but we're fighting him in the first round. That part of the story where you go back to Hammerlock after beating Piers, and Sonya and Leon are like, oh no, Pokemon are Dynomaxing all over the region. But don't worry, you focus on the Champion Cup. We'll handle this. And while it's actually pretty realistic, you wouldn't expect, like, kids to deal with all the world's problems. You would expect the adults to handle it. It's not very satisfying as a player, because, like, yeah, most of the main, like, stuff in the plot is solved by NPCs off-screen. It doesn't make for a particularly interesting story, at least that aspect of the story. And that actually also leads me into Sonya. Sonya, I feel, is very similar to Marnie to me, in the game really expects you to follow her journey and be proud of her development and where she ends up, but all of her character journey and development happens off-screen. It's just like, when she inherits the title of professor and gets her grandmother's coat, you're supposed to think, wow, this is so awesome. Like, you're supposed to feel so proud, but to me, I'm like, okay, that happened. I never saw any of your development that led to this point. Okay. It honestly feels to me like you're playing a multi-route story like Sonic Adventure 2, except you only have the option of picking one route. It feels like those scenes are like, hey, if you want to know what happens here, play the Leon and Sonya route. But there is no Leon and Sonya route. So yeah, Sonya's another case of a character who I feel like you're expected to think that she had development, but you never see any of her development. It all happened off screen. So that was kind of annoying. So in general, I find this game's main storyline to be very hit and miss. But I do like the gym leader battles, and what is good about the main story I think definitely does stand out. It has pretty good characters, even the ones like Bede who lose a lot of relevance later. It's definitely not my favourite main story in the series. I do think that Gen 7 and Gen 5 obviously have it beat by quite a long way. Wow, that did considerably less damage after the light screen. And now it's going to do considerably even less. I meant to switch Pokemon. So yeah, that's really all I'll say about the main story. So one of the things that I've come to really appreciate about this game is the max raid battles online, and just online in general. Now, that is as long as you're not using link codes. Apparently link codes were a thing in Let's Go. I never played Let's Go, but people hated them then, so I don't get why Game Freak still use them for this game. Okay, I'm not seeing the effectiveness indicators, which means I've never fought a Sylveon before, which is interesting. And one thing that I will say is that if you don't have anyone you know in real life who has the game, or you don't plan on getting Switch Online, I actually wouldn't recommend this game. Because I do think most of the fun is had through online trading, battling, and through max raid battles. Max raid battles, some people have complained because they do get very, very difficult in single player because, well, the NPCs are almost as bad as Herp Dirt Villagers. Almost, not quite. Because there's nothing worse than Herp Dirt Villagers, but they're almost as bad. Well, actually, no, Trails in the Sky SC NPCs are even worse, but yeah. Apart from those two categories of NPCs, the NPCs in this game are almost as bad. But they do scale with your level. If you get, like, Zacian, Zamazenta, or Eternatus, and candy them up to level 100, generally speaking, the max raid battles are not that hard to solo. But they are a lot more fun and consistent if you do the multiplayer. So, that's... I don't know, like, there's not really that much else I have to say. I guess I can talk about the wild area a little bit. Now, the wild area is kind of interesting because, like, as much as I have mentioned before that I don't particularly care for open world games, which is not a common opinion, I actually do feel like the wild area has a few design issues compared to some other open world areas that I played. In particular, it lacks a lot of good fast travel points. The only fast travel points are the entrance, Motorstoke, Hammerlock, and the daycare. And there are a lot of dens that are kind of still take a while to access even from those fast travel points. So really could have used a bit more of that. It also lacks high places to climb and get a good vantage point to see what the quickest route to where you need to go is. So that's kind of a thing. But apart from that, I love watching all of the Pokemon running around there. And, like, I like how everything goes up to level 60 in the post-game. That's kind of cool. Wow, that's a surprisingly dark quote as well. And then that's a Tsundere quote. Oh, Nessa again. Okay, I skipped over that because we've already seen Nessa, so yeah. And I think at this point, the only one left is Hop, so how fitting to end this with Hop. A few final thoughts. I haven't mentioned this before, but I really like Galar as a concept for a region, but I am kind of biased because my family, like my ancestors were actually from the UK. So because of that, like my mother and a lot of other people in my family get a lot of the British references, and in fact, like I think my ancestors even came from some of the towns that a few of the cities in this game are actually based on. So yeah, and I do feel like there's definitely still a lot of, basically British cultural references are probably understood a bit more in Australia than in, say, America. So, yeah, I feel like Australians probably get some more of the stuff. I feel like, in particular, Team Yell, we inherited a lot of the sort of British football hooligan culture when it comes to sports, whereas the way that Americans cheer for sports is very different. So, Team Yell's a lot funnier if you get the references. Particularly the chants they do, like, a lot of them are actually sports chants that I've heard at, like, school sport events, so, well, at least they're based off of them, with, like, Pokemon puns added and Marnie's name inserted into, like, every sentence. So yeah, Team Yell's way funnier if you get the British cultural references. As are characters like Piers, and a few of the towns too, like, the town that Nessa comes from, Holbury, is based on Liverpool, and knowing that, Holbury's music does sound very Beatles-like, so that's probably a reference for those who don't know the Beatles are originally from Liverpool. But I guess, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Like, Galar is just interesting to me because I like all of the British references, and one thing that I'd actually really love to see is, I don't know, like, how feasible this is, but I would really like to see a decent quality fan dub, which is probably a pipe dream, where the characters have actually region-appropriate accents. Like, that would be really cool. There are voices that I hear for certain characters in my head. In particular, Piers. I picture Piers, if you've heard London Calling at all, which is a song that's been misused a lot, it's actually kind of a... It's kind of a song about, like, post-apocalypse and how much London will suck in the future, but a lot of people outside of Britain think it's about how cool London is, but it's the exact opposite. But, basically, I picture Piers sounding exactly like the guy who sings that song. And, for some weird reason, I also picture, oh, you're part fairy, so my fighting moves aren't gonna... Ooh, this could be bad, I forgot about that. Actually, kind of forgot that you had Zacian. So one thing that I really, really like about Hop is that he's one of the few rivals to actually get a legendary. I consider Ian more of an antagonist than a rival, so he doesn't really count. Okay, that debuffs your defense a little bit. But anyway, for some reason I've also always pictured Raihan as sounding Cockney, but I don't know if a lot of people picture him like that. They did do like an anime based on these games where the characters actually were given American voice actors for some reason. Yeah, really want to get rid of that attack buff I'm getting, aren't I? Can I survive it? Can I survive? No. I might actually have to Dynomax to get out of this. You're Fairy Steel, aren't you? So I think Drill Run will work. But in terms of my final thoughts on this game, why can't I Dynomax? Did I Dynomax already? And did I forget about? I did, didn't I? I guess Hop is way easier with Zamazenta. In the end, Sword and Shield is a Pokemon game. That's basically it. It's a Pokemon game. And how much you'll enjoy it heavily depends on what you play Pokemon games for. If you play Pokemon for dex completion and for collecting, you'll probably not like this game. If you play it for the main story, there's maybe a 50% chance you'll like this game. If you play it for the battling, you may like this game, but you may not. It depends on how big you are on Dynomax. If you play it for the socialization and multiplayer, though, I think you will really enjoy it. I personally really like those elements. And I also, again, like the world in general, and it's kind of a weird thing in that... Oh, Snorlax here is a perfect example of the mouth thing that I was talking about earlier. You can clearly see that mouth is just painted on. But, anyway, I enjoyed these games a lot more than I thought, particularly due to the wild Pokemon mechanics, a lot of the quality of life features, like the fact that you can turn off nicknaming, which makes mass catching or mass hatching eggs a lot easier. The mints that let you switch natures at will, that's really good for Pokemon that you catch in the wild that happen to have good IVs but the wrong nature. So when I was doing that survey, the strange thing is, one of the questions was, do you think that, like, these games are better, worse, or about the same as Gen 7? And I couldn't help but say better. There was just something about Gen 7 that, I like its story and characters, but just something about it never really fully clicked with me, and it's very hard to explain exactly why. But for some reason, I enjoyed these games a lot more. It's just kind of a strange thing that I can't really explain. And with that, let's finish off Hop, and he now has given up on Dynamaxing his starter, and instead is going for a Gigantamax Corviknight, which I still don't have. I found one in a raid battle once, and I didn't catch it because ridiculously low catch rates. I've been pretty lucky with Gigantamax catches so far, though. I think Corviknight's like the only one I've failed at catching so far. But this could be a problem. At least Wind Rage doesn't buff your speed like the other max move does. I should be able to take you out. I wonder if I can do it without revives. Who do I have left? Okay, you do not like flying. You also do not like flying. If I'd used, like, I was considering Colossal as my fire type, because that would actually cover my team's weaknesses better, but I just don't really like Colossal that much. It just looks a bit too similar to Aggron for my liking. Yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go for a revive. And still spamming Wind Rage. Yeah, there's a reason why the Corviknight that I use on my team for battling was actually regular Dynomax and not Gigantamax, because I prefer the speed buff to just wiping away screens and hazards. It's just like, you don't... Well, I mean, you see a lot of screens in double battles, but you don't see a lot of hazards, and screens, you can get rid of them other ways. That's actually what Mr. Mime's purpose is on my doubles team, but I never ended up actually getting to use that screen cleaner ability. It's also why I didn't use any Pokemon that use Reflect or Light Screen, because Screen Cleaner gets rid of your own screens as well as the enemies. And this should finish it. There we go. Champion Cup Hop, like in this form, might actually be stronger than Leon. If he has Zacian. Zamazenta's a bit easy to deal with, because it doesn't get an attack buff upon entering battle. At least he's worth a lot of money. But anyway, that's that over. I'll see if I get a Flame Orb. I inevitably will not get a Flame Orb. I hope you've enjoyed my rambling thoughts on Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I will see you all next time. It'd be so amazing if I actually did get the Flame Orb this time. I knew it would just be Pokeballs. Anyway, see you next time.